I stood barefoot on my lawn, a grocery bag in hand, staring at a stranger who just stepped out of my guest house. He wore only a towel, sipped my orange juice, and had the audacity to tell me I had no right to be on his rental property. For a solid 10 seconds, I thought I was being punked by some hidden camera crew. Then he slammed the door in my face. 2 hours earlier, I'd pulled into my driveway after 2 weeks away, helping my sister recover from knee surgery. The main house looked fine, mail collected, lawn trimmed, thanks to my scheduled service. But something was off. My guest house, a tidy unit tucked behind the hedges, had a new welcome mat that read, "Live, Laugh, Lounge," and string lights I'd never seen before. The keypad lock on the door was gone, replaced with a deadbolt. My key didn't fit. I rang the bell, knocked twice, and stepped back. The man who answered, draped in my guest towels, looked annoyed I'd interrupted his morning. He said his name was Ethan and that he was renting the place through Linda, the HOA president. He even waved a laminated lease in my face, as if that made it legit. When I asked if Linda had shown him ownership papers, he shrugged. She's the VYC president. I figured she runs things. I wasn't sure what irked me more, his smugness or the fact that he was using my favorite mug for his coffee. Fuming, I marched to the HOA office, a smug little building next to the clubhouse that seemed to lord over our cul-de-sac. Linda was there, perched behind her desk like a small-town queen, decked out in oversized earrings and a floral blouse that screamed, "Control freak," with a pastel obsession. She flashed a smile, the kind someone wears when they know you're about to lose it, and they're ready to gaslight you for fun. "James, welcome back," she cooed. "How's your sister's knee?" I cut to the chase, demanding to know why a stranger was in my guest house, why the locks were changed, and why Ethan thought Linda had the right to rent it out. "Oh, dear," she said, feigning surprise. "I thought you'd signed the voluntary use waiver. We talked about it last month, unoccupied spaces being used for community housing. It's in the bylaws." There was no talk, no waiver. But she pulled a document from a drawer, complete with my forged signature. It was on HOA letterhead, dated 2 weeks ago while I was away. My name was typed neatly, but the signature wasn't even close to mine. "You relinquished temporary rights to the guest unit," she said, flipping to another page. "It was underutilized. Ethan's family, and we prioritized housing. It's policy." Family? So Linda's nephew was squatting in my backyard, using my towels, my Wi-Fi, and my groceries, and I was supposed to feel charitable? When I asked what would happen if I called the cops, she laughed. "Go ahead," she said, leaning forward with that smug grin. "But disharmony in the neighborhood triggers board review. And since you signed the waiver," she let that hang like a threat. I left her office seething and called my lawyer, Tom, a college buddy who'd helped me buy the house. When I explained, he was stunned, then told me to send him the document. He confirmed the signature was a fake, nothing like my real one. I tried cutting power to the guest house, but the breaker box was padlocked. Same with the water line. Linda had locked me out of my own utilities. That evening, I peeked through my blinds and saw Ethan dragging a ratty couch from a pickup truck. Linda was there, directing him, pointing at my flower beds, telling him where to step, because the homeowner's picky. I stood in my kitchen, clutching a mug I no longer trusted, realizing this wasn't just petty, it was war. I dug into community housing laws and found nothing allowing an HOA to seize property, especially with forged documents. Tom drafted a cease and desist letter, but I wanted more payback that would hit Linda's ego, her reputation, her fake earrings. That night, I walked the block, noting other guest units. I knocked on 3 doors, asking about HOA rules. 2 neighbors had never heard of any housing initiative. One said Linda had warned them against renting their guest space without board approval, or they'd face fines. Funny how the rules bent for her nephew. By midnight, I had a folder of Eve White Denke, 2 angry neighbors ready to talk, and a camera aimed at the guest house in case Ethan tried something dumb, like hosting parties in my bathrobe. This wasn't just a property fight, Anna Marie, it was personal. The next morning, I sat at my dining table with coffee, my laptop, and a stack of documents exposing Linda's scheme. I wasn't just fighting for my guest house, I was aiming to topple her HOA throne. Tom's cease and desist letter went into an envelope marked, "Hand delivery only." I didn't trust email with Linda's claim it got lost. At 9:01 a.m., I walked into the HOA office. Linda's door was ajar. I heard her on speakerphone, laughing about how tenants were easier than homeowners. I knocked, pushed the door open, and set the envelope down. When she saw Tom's letterhead, her smile cracked. She tried to brush it off. "This is an overreaction," she said, arms crossed. "Ethan's just staying temporarily. You're blowing this out of proportion." I replied, "You forged my signature, trespassed, and leased my property to your nephew under a fake policy. That's not small, it's criminal." She rolled her eyes. "If you want to play lawyer, fine. The board always backs me." That's when I realized she wasn't scared. She was used to winning, bending rules, issuing fines, and silencing neighbors. But she'd picked the wrong fight. That afternoon, I made calls to the zoning office, the fire marshal, and the health department. I reported unauthorized occupancy, unpermitted rentals, and fire code issues. I didn't exaggerate. The truth was enough. 2 days later, inspectors showed up. I sat on my porch, sipping iced tea, as they approached Ethan, who was tossing a football in my hoodie. He looked panicked, while vying his laminated lease. The zoning officer asked for proof of occupancy. The fire marshal questioned a gas grill near the shed. The health rep asked about water and septic systems. Ethan's answers? Nope, nope, and nope. Linda arrived, face red, trying to smooth things over. But the zoning officer handed her a citation. The fire marshal issued a non-compliance notice, and the health rep ordered the unit vacated. Ethan packed his stuff and left that evening in a beat-up sedan. The next day, an orange sign appeared on the guest house, condemned until permitted. No entry. I grinned every time I saw it. The neighborhood Facebook group lit up. Someone posted a photo of the inspectors with the caption, "Linda's family deal fell apart." Comments poured in, stories of Linda fining people for blue doors, musical wind chimes, even a dog barking too aggressively. I wasn't the only one with a Linda problem. A retired couple, Paul and Ellen, knocked on my door, saying they'd been waiting for someone to stand up to her. We talked for an hour, hatching a plan for an HOA board shakeup. Linda didn't quit. A violation notice appeared on my door, citing excessive outdoor illumination from string lights up for 3 years. I crumpled it and checked my new security camera. At 2:14 a.m., someone in my hoodie entry prying open my garage, failed, then slashed my truck's tires. I filed a police report and saved the footage. This wasn't just revenge, it was outsmarting a bully who thought she was untouchable. By the weekend, the orange sign was a neighborhood legend. People snapped photos, whispered, slowed their cars. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. Linda had turned our community into her fiefdom, and I was done. But she wasn't. A Sunday night post on the neighborhood forum, signed concerned resident, called me a troublemaker, jeopard of fellow who'd made false reports, threatening legal action. It was Linda's style, vague threats wrapped in HOA jargon. I knew she was trying to turn neighbors against me, but she didn't realize how fed up people were. I knocked on doors, brought coffee to retirees, helped fix a porch light, and asked one question. Had Linda ever crossed a line with you? The stories were wild. Find someone for unapproved gutters, ordered a fence repainted for being visually aggressive, threatened to revoke pool access over a kid's scooter. A coalition formed in Paul and Ellen's garages, even of us. Then 14. We compared notices, dug through bylaws, found amendments Linda had pushed through without votes. She was spiraling, issuing random violations for unauthorized plant groupings and non-regulation patio chairs. Then came the emergency HOA meeting, announced with glossy flyers about restoring harmony. I knew Linda's plan: paint me as the VY lane, frame the inspections as an attack, and rally her board cronies. I had Tom draft a statement listing the forgery, the illegal rental, and her violations of law. Since I couldn't speak, I gave it to Ellen, who'd been fined for a too cheerful garage door. The meeting was packed. Linda opened with a speech about unity, but Ellen stood and read the statement calm, factual, devastating. She demanded an investigation and Linda's suspension. The room buzzed. Neighbors spoke up about bogus fines, missing meeting notes, even Linda mocking someone's accent. Then someone shouted, "Check her emails." A USB stick surfaced, revealing messages between Linda and Ethan joking about free housing and forged signatures. Silence fell. Linda stammered, "It's out of context," but no one bought it. The board suspended her enforcement powers and promised to reconvene. That night, I walked home under porch lights. Linda once threatened to fine me over, feeling free. But I knew she'd regroup. 3 days later, she sued me in small claims court for Law 2000, claiming I'd sabotaged Ethan's housing and defamed her. Tom laughed. I didn't. A letter taped to the guest house warned of HOA retaliation if I kept pushing. I bagged it for Tom. Our coalition group, 2/3 of homeowners, signed a petition to oust Linda. Even her allies bailed, claiming they'd always had doubts. At a special session, Linda snapped, ranting about her sacrifice and blaming me as a menace. Someone interrupted. What rule lets you forge signatures? Laughter erupted. Tom handed the board a packet mails, photos, neighbor testimonies. The vote to remove Linda was overwhelming. She walked out silent, her shoes clicking on the tile. Days later, my original guest house key arrived in the mail, taped to a card. It's yours again. For now. Classic Linda. Her lawsuit crumbled when Tom filed a counterclaim with the forgery EVY Denke. She withdrew, citing health issues. The board replaced her with Sarah, a fair woman once fined for planting lavender. Bylaws were reformed, transparency returned. The guest house passed inspections, and I turned it into a weekend rental, each guest getting a note. This home was stolen. Now it's a sanctuary. The neighborhood healed, kids played, gardens grew, no one feared fines. One night, I stood outside, tea in hand, listening to sprinklers and laughter. Linda's scar remained, but her downfall united us. A neighbor's sign by my guest house read, private property. Owner occupied. No Lindis allowed. It made me laugh the best Tory yet.